Tracy, you are going to die.
What? No!
When I tell you who I'm dating. Squeaky Fromm.
There are TV crossovers, and then there are TV crossovers that feel like two completely different planets smashed together. 1 minute you're in a world where the stakes are life and death, the lighting is moody, and every line sounds like it should be followed by a dramatic dun-dun. And the next minute, somebody's making a joke about a sandwich, a bad date, or a talking baby. And that tonal whiplash is exactly why these are so fun to revisit. Because when a serious drama meets a goofy sitcom, both sides have to bend. Just a little. The drama has to admit the world is occasionally ridiculous, and the sitcom has to prove it can handle real tension without cracking into a full punchline every 10 seconds. Sometimes the result is seamless. Sometimes it's chaotic. And sometimes it's so bizarre, you swear it must have been created on a dare in a writer's room at 2 a.m. So let's count down 8 crossovers where serious dramas met goofy sitcoms that didn't just share a universe, but also collided headfirst in tone, style, and vibe. And as we go, keep an eye on the secret ingredient that makes these work: commitment. If the shows don't fully commit to the bit, the whole thing falls apart. Quick favor before we jump into the countdown. If you're into deep-cut TV history like this, hit like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments which crossover you still can't believe actually happened. 8. Friends, ER, when sitcom dating energy hit a real hospital. In Friends, the hospital is usually just a quick pit stop, a place where someone's embarrassed, mildly injured, and about to turn it into a story at Central Perk. But in The One with Two Parts, the hospital suddenly feels like it has real stakes, because ER's world walks right through the door, specifically via George Clooney and Noah Weil showing up as doctors. The genius isn't just, hey, recognizable faces. It's the way their presence changes the temperature of the scene. Clooney's Dr. Michael Mitchell and Weil's Dr. Jeffrey Rosen don't show up with sitcom rhythm. They show up with medical confidence, that practiced "we've seen everything" calm. And that immediately makes Rachel and Monica act like they've accidentally wandered into a cooler, more adult show. What makes it work is that Friends doesn't try to turn the doctors into cartoons. Instead, it plays the moment honestly. Rachel gets flustered. Monica tries to be composed. And suddenly the hospital becomes a place where you can feel the stakes, while still letting the characters be themselves. And the tonal clash becomes the joke. Because you can tell these two doctors are from a world where the night can go sideways fast. While Rachel and Monica are treating this like the most important thing happening is whether they're coming off charming or weird. It's ER seriousness meeting Friends social anxiety. And somehow they balance. It also has that perfect crossover magic. It feels like a surprise, but not a gimmick. Like the door opened for a second, 2 worlds brushed shoulders, and then everything snapped back. Except now, the scene has this extra, wait, did that really happen? Glow. 7. Ally McBeal, The Practice, the same case, 2 completely different realities. If you want a pure example of tonal whiplash done on purpose, this is it. Ally McBeal and The Practice were both legal shows, but they lived on different planets. One is heightened, quirky, and emotional, where feelings and weirdness can practically become part of the courtroom air. The other is grounded, intense, and built like a pressure cooker. So what happens when they share a story? You get a crossover that's basically an experiment. Can the same case survive 2 totally different storytelling styles? The case plays out across Ally McBeal's The Inmates and The Practice's Axe Murderer, with the crossover explicitly structured as a 2-part handoff. And the fun is watching the rules change depending on which show you're in. In Ally, the case feels like it's surrounded by personality, awkwardness, and emotional spikes. In The Practice, the same basic situation becomes heavier, more procedural, more ruthless, more "this could actually ruin lives." That's the hook. The crossover doesn't just connect casts. It forces the audience to notice how tone shapes meaning. The same legal battle can feel like a character-driven oddity in 1 hour, and a brutal moral grind in the next. And because the shows commit, it doesn't feel like a cheap stunt. It feels like a real collision, like two law firms from two different universes agreed to handle the same nightmare, and neither side is fully prepared for how the other side talks, reacts, and even thinks. It's one of those crossovers where you don't just remember the guest appearances, you remember the sensation of switching worlds mid-story. 6. CSI, 2.5 Men, Forensics meets Sitcom Chaos. This one is so strange it almost sounds fake. A serious crime procedural and a goofy sitcom getting tied together through a writer-swap style crossover event. On the CSI side, it shows up as the episode 2.5 Deaths, which originally aired May 8, 2008. And the premise is basically, the CSI team gets dragged into the world of a TV comedy production after a sitcom star turns up dead, turning a bright, performative environment into a full forensic nightmare. What makes the tone clash delicious is how CSI treats the sitcom world like a crime scene you can dust, measure, and dissect. Jokes and ego and backstage drama stop being silly when the show's language is fingerprints, evidence bags, and grim certainty. And then, because crossovers love an extra layer of "did you catch that?", the episode includes uncredited cameo appearances by 2.5 Men stars, Charlie Sheen, John Cryer, and Angus T. Jones. So you're watching a serious procedural do what it always does, stare into the abyss and catalog it, while the comedy world around it keeps trying to behave like everything is still light and manageable. It's like the episode is saying, you can laugh all you want, but the moment the CSI lights come on, the room changes. It's also one of those crossovers where the vibe shift is the point. CSI doesn't become a sitcom. The sitcom doesn't fully become a crime show. They just overlap long enough for the collision to feel surreal. 5. The Simpsons, The X-Files, Conspiracy Seriousness versus Springfield Stupidity. This is an all-timer because the crossover isn't subtle. The Simpsons basically invites the X-Files into Springfield, and then immediately dares it to keep a straight face. The episode is The Springfield Files, and it aired January 12th, 1997. The setup is classic Springfield chaos. Homer thinks he's seen something alien. Nobody believes him, and then suddenly Mulder and Scully show up like, okay, let's do this. And what's so funny is that the show doesn't make them goofy. Mulder and Scully walk in with their trademark seriousness, measured voices, skeptical professionalism, that vibe of people who've had long nights in dark rooms. They treat Homer like a real witness. They interview. They observe. They try to apply logic to a town where logic goes to die. The crossover works because both sides play their roles hard. The X-Files energy stays intact, and The Simpsons refuses to stop being The Simpsons. So the comedy comes from the mismatch. The agents are trying to solve an eerie mystery, while Springfield keeps handing them nonsense with a straight face. It's also a perfect example of how a crossover can be a love letter. The episode clearly understands the X-Files tone well enough to mimic it, but it uses that tone like a costume Springfield can try on for 20 minutes, before inevitably ripping it at the seams. You don't just remember it as a guest spot. You remember it as a genuine genre mashup that somehow honors both shows without either one losing its identity. 4. Bones Family Guy, the talking baby who should not be here. There's a moment in the Bones episode, The Critic in the Cabernet, where you realize the show is about to do something deeply irresponsible, in the best way. Because yes, Family Guy's Stewie Griffin shows up, in a real, live-action procedural, in the middle of a world built on evidence, autopsies, and grim realism. The reason this works is because the cameo isn't treated like a full-on cartoon invasion. It's played like a weird little tear in reality, something the characters can barely process, and the audience definitely shouldn't overthink. Bones maintains its serious rhythm. The case, the investigation, the tension. And then Stewie appears as a punch of absurdity that somehow doesn't ruin the episode, because the show doesn't linger too long or let it become the whole point. The crossover is basically a balancing act. Bones proves it can wink without collapsing, and Family Guy gets to exist for a second inside a world that would normally reject it completely. And the deeper reason it's memorable is that it highlights how serious TV language is. Bones has a specific visual and emotional grammar. Interrogations, lab work, quiet dread. Stewie's presence is funny because he doesn't match that grammar at all. He's pure comedy logic. He's a walking interruption. It's like the episode gives you 2 seconds of, what if the universe glitched? And then rushes to patch the hole before the whole genre melts down. 3. St. Elsewhere, Cheers. No laugh track, same bar, completely different feeling. This might be the purest example of a drama walking into a sitcom space and making it feel uncanny. On March 27th, 1985, St. Elsewhere aired an episode literally titled Cheers, where characters from the sitcom, Carla, Norm, and Cliff, appear inside the medical drama's world. And the weirdness isn't just, hey, familiar faces. It's that the same bar and the same characters suddenly exist without the sitcom's protective layer. In Cheers, those characters are comfort. They're routine. They're the warm, familiar background noise of a place where everybody knows your name. But in St. Elsewhere, the atmosphere changes. The lighting feels different. The pacing feels different. The jokes don't land the same way because there's no laugh track to cushion them. And the bar starts to feel less like a hug and more like a real room where real people sit, sometimes sad, sometimes stuck, sometimes hiding. What makes this crossover legendary is that it doesn't cheapen either show. It doesn't turn the drama into a joke. It doesn't try to make the sitcom suddenly tragic. It simply lets them overlap long enough for you to feel the tonal difference in your bones. It's also one of the rare crossovers where you can almost sense the audience doing a double take in real time. Wait, are we allowed to see them like this? Because it reveals something crossovers rarely reveal. How much tone controls our emotional relationship with characters. Same bar, same people, entirely different emotional weather. 2. 30 Rock Law and Order, SVU, when the serious detectives stepped into NBC chaos. Some crossovers connect universes through plot. This one connects them through pure network DNA and one unforgettable character. In 30 Rock's episode, Que Sorpresa, aired February 3rd, 2011, Richard Belzer appears as Sergeant John Munch, with Ice-T also showing up as Det. Odafin Tutuola, bringing that unmistakable law and order, SVU energy, straight into Liz Lemon's world. And the comedy doesn't come from making them silly. It comes from how 30 Rock treats the presence of these very serious, very iconic detectives as just another insane Tuesday at NBC. The joke is basically, of course this is happening. Why wouldn't it? What's great is that Munch works as a bridge because the character already feels like he's seen everything. That cynical, lived-in vibe is perfect in a sitcom where the characters act like they're constantly surviving absurdity. So when he appears, it doesn't feel like a cheap cameo. It feels like a hardened detective walking into a building full of people who are somehow even more exhausting than criminals. The tonal clash hits because SVU language is so specific. Clipped dialogue, controlled intensity, that sense that every conversation might suddenly turn serious. 30 Rock is the opposite. Fast, chaotic, self-aware. Putting them together is like mixing oil and water, and then somehow getting a perfect vinaigrette for one scene. And it's also a reminder that crossovers don't always need a massive plot hook. Sometimes you just need the right character walking through the wrong door. 1. I love Lucy Adventures of Superman. Wait, this is canon. Moment before crossovers became marketing events, before shared universes became a business model, there was I Love Lucy casually doing something that still feels wild, bringing Superman into a sitcom. The episode is Lucy and Superman, first broadcast January 14th, 1957, and it features George Reeves appearing as Superman at Little Ricky's party. And it's not a parody Superman. It's not a wink-wink fake version. It's Superman, in the middle of a show built on domestic chaos, and Lucy's ability to turn any simple plan into a full emergency. The brilliance here is that the episode understands both tones and plays them straight. Lucy's world is built on escalating desperation. Superman's world is built on calm capability. Lucy tries to control the situation. It spins out, and then Superman shows up as the ultimate adult in the room. And because it's Lucy, the comedy isn't Superman is silly. The comedy is that Lucy is so Lucy that even the presence of the Man of Steel doesn't prevent her from getting into trouble. The crossover works because Superman isn't dragged down into sitcom logic. He stays heroic and composed. Lucy stays frantic and determined. And the collision becomes iconic. It's the template for everything that came later. Take two tones that shouldn't mix, commit to both, and let the contrast create the magic. Conclusion. What's funny is that crossovers like these aren't just bonus episodes. They're little time capsules of how TV used to work, when shows on the same network could bump into each other, when writers could take a swing at something weird, and when audiences were more willing to go, sure, why not? And the real reason these stick is simple. Tone is identity. A serious drama isn't just serious because of plot. It's serious because of pacing, lighting, dialogue style, and the way it treats consequences. A goofy sitcom isn't goofy just because of jokes. It's goofy because the world bends to keep things moving, and embarrassment is often the worst possible outcome. So, when those two worlds meet, you get a kind of creative spark you can't fake. Sometimes the drama becomes funnier because it refuses to laugh. Sometimes the sitcom becomes sharper because the stakes suddenly feel real. And when it's done right, you don't feel like you're watching a gimmick. You feel like you're watching two genres test each other and briefly become something new. Now, I want to know, which one of these still blows your mind the most? And what's your dream serious drama meets goofy sitcom crossover that never happened, but absolutely should have? Drop it in the comments. And if you want a part 2, tell me which decade you want next. Because honestly, TV has been pulling this trick for longer than we give it credit for.